Welcome to the LEGO McLaren Supercar Showroom. Hi, I'm Joe, and I have not one, but two Rebrickable MOCs to show you today. First is this building you see before you, which is MOC-188727 by Webrick, called the Supercar Showroom. This model is made from two copies of the LEGO Creator 3-in-1 Modern House, set 31153. The Creator 3-in-1 Modern House has lots of white, gray, and brown pieces, and mostly made for walls and floors. So this is a good model to turn into something like a showroom. And I went ahead and built all three models because I have a thing about buying a set and not building the model it was designed to make. So to make sure Honor was satisfied, I built all three models, and they're all right, but I was really looking forward to making this showroom. The model calls for one 32 by 32 base plate and one 32 by 16 base plate. I do not have a 32 by 16 base plate, at least not one that I was willing to use for this model, so I just put it on two 32 by 32 base plates. So I've got 16 studs here of unused space off to the side. I will probably find some model to put there, or maybe even build something myself. But for now, I just wanted to showcase the showroom here. Now, before I get too far, I should say that I am not a huge car guy, and I'm not a huge McLaren guy. However, I do like building Rebrickable models, and I also like building Speed Champions models. The innovative building techniques used in those models I find very interesting, and I also used to play with cars a lot when I was a kid, so I don't mind building cars and having model cars around. This particular model is advertised as being able to show three 8-wide Speed Champions cars on the inside when they're showed angled like they are here. And it's supposed to also fit 4 if you put them straight on. And if you have 6-wide Speed Champion cars, it will hold up to 5. And just to clarify, the Rebrickable model is a generic Supercar Showroom. I called it a McLaren Showroom just because I happen to have McLaren models. And I'll show more of a little customization I did in just a bit. So before we get into details, just a little bit about the building. This model is mostly just floor, walls, and a roof, as it's meant to hold the Speed Champions cars on the inside, but there are some details, so we'll go around the building. We'll start at the front. A lot of gray and dark gray tiles and some exposed studs, so you can pose minifigures, dot the front of the model, and a lot of the circular tiles and studs up against the wall, which kind of make it look like a rock garden, which I thought was cool. And there is some foliage in front of the building here on both sides, and we've got one tropical type tree. The front wall of the building is actually all windows and is probably the most distinguishing feature of the model, but it also gives you a great view of all the cars on the inside and makes this a great way to display your Speed Champions cars, which is what I plan to do here. The sides are pretty unremarkable. Now, there were a couple of extra windows at the bottom, and these door frames here at the top, they're just open. I mean, I have some clear panels to put in there if I wanted to, but really they just help add light, so there's nothing wrong with them. And otherwise, the wall is pretty much plain white with just a little bit of gray spots, mostly for necessity because there weren't enough white pieces. And on the inside, this is a detail that's on the inside. We'll see that in a bit. And here on the other side, more of the same. And then on the back, there's really nothing distinguishing. There are 4 doors here. Again, that's just kind of taking up space. And you can see I do have lights installed in the roof. Obviously, those don't come with LEGO, and they're just running off of a battery pack for now. The roof is a little bit interesting. It's mostly white, but it kind of ran out of large white elements as we got to the end, and there's kind of a solar panel or a sunroof of the building. So that's really good just to let light in if you don't have a light kit, which I will actually probably uninstall these lights as soon as I'm done with this video. There are sufficient pieces to actually close that hole, but they're all different colors and will probably make it look very messy, so I have no problem leaving the hole there in the roof. So now we'll take the roof off and look inside. The roof just sits on top easily, and I'll set it off to the side and go ahead and turn the lights off. If you look straight down on the inside, you can see where I've got 3 Speed Champions cars set in here, and there's really not room for a whole lot of interior details, but there are some. The walls are mostly tiled off because the modern house had so many snot bricks that pretty much you either have to have exposed studs or tile them off, and this is just a great way to use those tiles. Here at the top center was my attempt to make my customization. This was my attempt to make a McLaren emblem, and there are a lot of snot bricks that are actually behind that were just exposed studs with nothing on them, so I felt like this was better than just leaving those there. And since I have 3 McLaren cars in here, I figured let's identify this as a McLaren showroom. Now here's what the model looks like without the cars, and you can see the entire floor is not tiled off, but it is strategically tiled so that you can set the cars in there and they won't roll. Now, the bigger one that I had off to the right was so huge that it barely fit, and so it wasn't going to roll much anyway. But you can customize this tile however you want, depending on what cars you want to display in here if you choose to build this yourself. There's also a few places here where there are some studs where you can pose figures if you want. In this case, for the model, I've only used the figures that came with the modern house, plus the figures that came with the 2 Speed Champions cars that are in here. Yes, I know there's 3 cars, but it turns out that one of them is actually not a Speed Champion set. More on that in a bit. Most of the details are in the left side of the model. Here you've got a desk where on the right side of the screen you see it looks like a monitor and maybe a mouse, and on the left side you've got a plant and maybe some award that this dealership has. Up a little bit you see 2 light fixtures which actually mimic light fixtures that are on the modern house, and some kind of plant. And off to the side you've got a little couch and table and a waiting area, maybe while people wait to find out whether or not their loan is approved or their family finds an oil well, so they'll be able to own a McLaren. And then finally here in the front, you've got little signs in front of where each car is parked. These little vertical 1x2 black tiles, and supposedly they would show details about whatever car you're looking at. Now we'll take a look at the cars. Here we have the official LEGO Speed Champions model, which I'm not going to get into detail on, as I've already said I'm not a huge car person, and I'm sure that these models have been reviewed by far more knowledgeable people than me. In fact, I got this set because it was recommended by YouTuber Clever Pig, who noted that it has been discounted as low as $27, which is about how much it costs to get 1 Speed Champions car. And in this one you get a 2-pack, and they're really nice cars. The sticker sheet was not even that huge for these 2 cars. You've got the McLaren Solus GT here on the left, and the McLaren F1 LM here on the right. So the real reason I made my showroom a McLaren showroom is because I was already 2/3 of the way to having enough McLarens to put in it. But just to show a little bit about why I like Speed Champions models is they always have some type of clever building technique or clever part usage. In this case, you've got boat oars on the inside of the sides to create a certain texture on the model, and you've got a Technic pin to allow this particular angle to be created on here on the F1. Here on the Solus, my favorite building technique here or part usage is on the back, where you've got these little arrowhead pieces. I don't know if I can focus in better on those, that are being used from a side view to be the tail lights for the car. Finally, we have the second Rebrickable model that I've got on display here, MOC-188727 by thegbrix, a McLaren Artura in Golf livery. Now, I had never really thought about doing a Rebrickable car, like a Speed Champions car, until there was a video published by YouTuber Racing Brick talking about the many Rebrickable models that thegbrix has created. So I looked through the models, and honestly, I picked this one because the best reason to pick any car, I like the color. And by good fortune, it happened to be a McLaren, so that gave me a third McLaren to put in my showroom. So let's look at some details of this model. First of all, I had to source the bricks from Bricklink, or at least I tried to. The model called for some unusual pieces, or at least some pieces that were so rare that they were very expensive, particularly the rear wheel well here in medium azure, which is the color of blue that this model takes. This rear wheel well only appeared in one Lego set, so pieces are going on Bricklink for over $20 per part, which means 2 wheel wells would have cost more than the rest of the car put together. So I had to go outside the Lego family to get this piece at a reasonable price, and I placed an order with Webrick. And some of you may remember that I did a review of a haunted house a while back that was made by Webrick, and I wasn't too pleased with some of the part quality that was in there. However, when you buy just parts on Webrick, you get the option of buying standard parts, which I'm assuming is parts from wherever they can get them, or premium parts, which is specifically GoBricks, which is considered the top alternative to Lego as far as quality of bricks. And as you can see here, or at least I don't think you can see here, I think all of these medium azure bricks, except a couple, came from Webrick, and I do not see a huge difference in color between that and whatever Lego pieces I had to get in that color, so I'm satisfied with the quality of bricks there. One funny thing, though, about that package I got from Webrick was almost all of the pieces were in this plastic bag, which was packed inside of this plastic bag, which was packed inside of this plastic bag, which was packed inside of this plastic bag. Reducing single-use plastic does not seem to be a priority of Webrick. Okay, back to looking more at the car. First of all, the Gulf livery is something iconic within McLaren because they have been racing with this livery, which features the orange stripe down the middle and the light blue sides, and they actually made an Artura in this paint scheme. This model doesn't exactly match that paint scheme, but it does give you the idea of the orange stripe down the middle and the light blue colors on the side, and I just really like the way those two go together. Now for some features of the model, we'll just go around. The front uses 2 of these wedge pieces, or I don't know what you call those quarter circle pieces. In this case, they are in drum lacquered silver, and they represent the very narrow looking headlights. On the sides here, you've got kind of this open area, which I guess is some type of air intake. The back is probably the most imaginative use of pieces here. This is very hard to see, but these are actually axe blades in trans red, and they simulate the brake lights. And even harder to see here is the 2 holes right on the inside of them actually correspond to a similar feature on the real car. And then of course the left side is going to just be a mirror image of the right side. There were a lot of cool building techniques in here. Unfortunately though, some of those techniques involved pieces I did not have because I did not quite understand what was required. Specifically, I'm talking about this particular piece. This is just a sample of a piece in light gray. Here, I'll put it on its side. That this model called for 4 of, but it called for an older mold variant of it. And that's because this part in the center here is supposed to be, on the modern pieces, is a full plate wide, but on the older mold variant, it's only a half a plate wide. And you actually attach plates on both sides of it. So if you have a plate or tile on both sides of this, with the part in the middle that's a half plate wide and 2 tiles, you actually get the width of 1 stud, 2.5 plates. However, with the modern piece, it comes up to 3 plates, which means the way that this portion of the model was designed, that didn't quite fit properly. So I had to cheat a little bit. So it definitely makes this illegal. I also had to take a couple of pieces out of the model because they simply wouldn't fit. So, however, if you see where the model is finished, you don't even see that part. You can see it a little bit right here, where you can see where the pieces are bent. But the only way they actually fit in there is because there was another piece that I took out. So what's actually assembled in there is more like 4.5 plates wide instead of 5.5 plates wide, so that it can fit into an area that should only hold 5 plates. Another feature that distinguishes this from an actual Speed Champions model is the very unique windshield, which does not exist. In this case, a frame is made using nothing but rods and flex tube with minifigure hands stuck in the side. And get a close look at it there. That was not fun to put in because that flex tube is not as flexible as you think it might be advertised. But once they went in there, it did create the shape we wanted, and the bend is intentional to be able to get the shape that looks more like what the real car looks like. And the instructions called for one piece of flex tube, but you actually have to cut it and put the minifigure hands in. That was by far the most difficult part of the model, for which I had the correct pieces anyway. And finally, I removed a few pieces so we can get a quick look at the inside. And you can see the seats are created here using white pieces, and they actually resemble McLaren seats from at least this particular picture. Again, this was just a custom Rebrickable model. This was not a rebuild of an existing set. I ordered the pieces, some of them from Webrick, but most of the rest from Bricklink. And if you watch the A-Fool podcast or the Bricking News podcast, you know who Bricktsar is, and I'd like to thank Bricktsar for very quickly getting my Bricklink order to me so I could get this model built. And despite any little challenges I had building, which, you know, that's just a learning experience, I really like how it turned out. I think it looks great in the showroom. Thanks for coming to visit the McLaren showroom. And remember, today is a good day to build.